Welcome into the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Buck Rising back with you for another edition of the podcast. Greg, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to find a way to finish this NFL season with 4 games left. But with the amount of positive COVID test cases at this point and in so many teams across the league, I think that to be able to do film analysis, we have to know who's going to play on Sunday or Saturday or Thursday.
Buck, believe me, because, I do the matchup show, obviously, every week that I'm on with Matt Bowen and Sal Palantonio, and we do pieces, and then all of a sudden someone pops up on the COVID list, and I feel like we have to do twice the work. And, that's just life in the big city. No complaints, believe me, but that's the way it goes. And it's, I just keep hoping that, hey, today, tomorrow, the next day, we just won't keep seeing more names. I'm sure the league and the Players Association will handle this, and we'll get back to protocols, and hopefully we get through this without too much more damage. But I guess the good news is all these guys that are getting it basically have no symptoms. So that's probably the good news.
Yeah, I mean, it means that the vaccination portion of this is hopefully working the way that it's supposed to work. And now it's just incumbent upon the league to make sure that the boosters are administered so we can keep this thing on track. But we don't do a lot of news here on
we talk a little football. Yeah, we talk a little football. We make it up as we go, Buck. We make it up as we go. I
mean, you don't, but I do, Greg. I'm sure the audience knows that coming into this thing. But certainly an uninteresting football game to watch in real time when I was at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, and to rewatch it was equally as unpleasant. But I want to start with the Titans offense right now, Greg, because their opening drive, it looked like I'm used to them looking, right? Maybe not explosive plays down the field, but 10 plays, 74 yards, Deontay Foreman in the end zone. Like, it looked kind of what it was supposed to look like, if not for different personnel. But then the rest of it, the rest of the way, Greg, I wonder what you're seeing from them, because it's just simply not good enough.
The issue they're essentially having, and that doesn't mean you can never have a drive, but the issue they're essentially having is they almost have no intermediate passing game. Yeah. It's very condensed schematically. They don't really seem to feature intermediate and vertical route concepts and combinations that tactically break down zone coverage concepts. So ultimately what that means is you generate almost no explosive plays in the passing game, especially to wide receivers. Yeah. This was another game in which their longest pass play was to Jeff Swaim for 24 yards in the third quarter. We saw that a number of weeks ago as well, when their longest pass play was a flat ball to Swaim for, I believe, 24, 26 yards. So there's no real drop back passing game. The offense is somewhat limited. The O-line has become a little bit of an issue in pass protection. Too many one-on-one breakdowns resulting either in pressure and or sacks of Tannehill. So it's a tough way to play, Buck. I mean, you can get that drive every once in a while, and you can say, wow, that's what it should look like. But that's hard to do drive after drive after drive, as you well know, in the NFL. It's hard to put together 3, 4, 10-plus play drives in the NFL every single week.
Yeah, and certainly that's something that they're struggling to find 2 touchdown drives or 2 drives of scoring drives of that nature, much less 4 or 5 like you're talking about. Now, they only needed 1. Hell, they could have won that game with a field goal for how bad Jacksonville's offense looks. And again, we talked about Trevor Lawrence last week. The lack of support that he has, I think, is clear and obvious to everybody.
Yeah, and that's not going to be every week, though, obviously, as we know. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to score some points. I think their defense is playing really well, and obviously that's really the constant on a week-to-week basis. Evans was back. We know they rush the quarterback pretty efficiently and effectively. They do a lot of good things up front. They're getting quality play. Look, they almost had a totally different nickel package and dime package, because we saw Greg Maben play in the dime. He did not play in the nickel. We saw them move Screen played outside in the nickel and then went inside in the dime. Mm-hmm. And Buster Screen is a veteran player who you can line up in either spot. He's predominantly an inside slot, but they clearly felt that in their nickel, they'd prefer him outside to Greg Maben. And again, that's their call. They obviously felt that was better. But Buster Screen is a veteran, and he understands systems. He understands what he's asked to do, and he's been around the league for a long time as a quality player.
Mike Vrabel loves him, says he's one of the best professionals that he's been around. And I just think that Mike at this point appreciates a guy that can come in off the street and help them right away, the way that Buster Screen has. What they're also getting, before we kind of take a look at Pittsburgh, Greg, because obviously that's going to be a tough road game, no matter how the Steelers look at this point. I want to I know you've spoken on 3HL about this, Zach Cunningham, who we saw for the first time at Titans practice about an hour ago, an addition at inside linebacker. From a trait standpoint, what is Zach Cunningham, and how has he been as a pro for those who haven't been watching? Titans fans have obviously seen him and they're familiar with him at Vandy, but what kind of stands out about this guy?
Well, at his best, he's a really good player because he's got length, he's got movement ability, he can play the run, he can play sideline to sideline. He's good in zone coverage underneath because he's got that length and, to be able to move and cover ground. So he has range. So he's a good player. The question is, how does he fit into this right now? Because they just got Evans back. Evans obviously knows the system extremely well. The one advantage Zach Cunningham has is he was in Houston at the same time Vrabel and I believe Bowen was there as well. Was he not?
Rookie season.
Yeah. So, I mean, they know him and they know what he brings to the table. It's always hard for me to answer what their plans are for a guy like that. Obviously they signed him, so they feel that he brings something to the table. That part I can't answer.
Sure.
Because I think they probably feel pretty good with Brown and Evans. And when does David Long come back? Because I thought David Long played extremely well.
They did too, and that Jayon Brown lost his full-time starter job to David Long because the coaching staff feels the exact same way. They haven't shut him down for a long-term stint at this point. It seems like there was a bit of a setback with his recovery from the ankle injury. We don't have a timetable on it, and Mike's certainly not going to give us one. But Rashaan Evans played one of his better games on Sunday, Greg.
Yeah, I mean they're really good at linebacker, which doesn't mean you don't want to keep getting good players. That's. Sure. Every team wants good players, and the more you have, the better you feel. I don't know exactly how Cunningham fits right now. That's a coaching staff question. I can't really answer that. I would love to see David Long get back because I got to tell you, I mean, I watched him coming out of college and I liked his tape, but I think he's a far better pro than college player. And he was a very productive college player in terms of number of tackles. But I think his ability in zone coverage in the pass game has really been something that has been very impressive on tape. I mean, I go back to that interception against the Colts that was made by Byard, and everybody talks about what a great play that Byard made on the interception in overtime. And it was a great play by Byard. But I think without what David Long did in reading that and getting underneath that crosser by Pittman, I don't think that interception happens. And I just think Long has been so much better than I guess I anticipated, which, hey, what do I know? But so much better than I anticipated watching him coming out of college.
No, and I think that observation certainly here is one that they held. I mean, he was a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year when he was in college. So for you to say that that he seems to be better as a pro as he was a college player, that's no small praise. But Mike Vrabel was.
He was also a 6th round pick, right? He was not a high pick.
He was 6th round or 5th round.
Clearly teams did not feel that his production in college based on his size and his traits was not going to translate to the NFL as a true big time starter, or he wouldn't have been drafted where he was.
Yeah, no. And that similar case study with Jayon Brown in the 5th round a couple of years ago, and Long has surpassed him in that role at this juncture. So looking at the Steelers, Greg, because that 29-0 lead that Minnesota almost blew against them last Thursday night was an interesting watch. The way that they did it, though, was taking advantage of a Steelers defense that's pretty banged up right now as far as the defensive line is concerned. What kind of stands out about what Pittsburgh has available to them, and how much different are they with TJ Watt as opposed to without
him? Now, TJ Watt, what's his status?
So I've got the injury report from Pittsburgh, and it has TJ Watt on he was limited with a groin injury, but he did practice today.
All right. So let's assume he's going to play.
Yeah.
Their biggest issue was stopping the run against Minnesota. Now, they got better in the second half, but in the first half they were gashed, and it looked really bad because the holes were just way, way too big.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that Minnesota did, which you'll see Tennessee do, is Minnesota, they feature high percentage base personnel groupings. And by that, I mean, they line up with a fullback. They line up with 2 tight ends. They line up with 3 tight ends. We know Tennessee does the same. In fact, this past game against Jacksonville, now obviously the game flow probably increased the percentages, but that was a base personnel game for the Titans in terms of 12 personnel, in terms of 13 personnel. They used the fullback some. So in that sense, they're like Minnesota, but I would expect the Steelers to be a lot better. Normally, a team does not get gashed like that 2 weeks in a row because they figure it out and they find a way. And that's a very good coaching staff that Pittsburgh has. So again, I'm not saying that Tennessee's not going to come out and try to run it. And yes, could they have some success? They could, but it won't be the same thing, Buck. That will be shored up by the Steelers, by the defense as a whole, and by the coaching staff. The big issue to me is in pass protection if they have to throw it, because TJ Watt normally lines up on the left side of the defense, and he's going to be matched against Quisenberry. And Quisenberry, the question is, if you get into those passing situations, they may need to help Quisenberry because, he had some struggles this past week. I don't think you can let him, if it's 3rd and 9, I'm not sure you can let him match up to TJ Watt one-on-one.
No, Dwayne Smoot and Jihad Ward for the Jags gave him a little bit of work on Sunday. Certainly, the Titans. I mean, the offensive line is a whole different conversation because I don't know who's good. They haven't finished a game as a complete unit all year long, Greg. And I think that's at the core. There's a lot of issues, but at the core, I think it comes down to those injuries for certain. With Ben Roethlisberger, it's been reported that this may be his last season. We can all clearly see where he's debilitated as a player. But in that second half, what did they show you as far as their aggressiveness and what is he still capable of?
Well, they're a very interesting offensive team when it comes to the pass game. They're kind of a combination of quick game and then some vertical shots. There's not really an intermediate passing game that they have. So they want the ball out of Ben's hands as quick as they can, which is why there's so much quick game. And even the vertical shots, quite honestly, the ball comes out quick because they're not asking him to sit in the pocket. So that's really what their offense is. It's quick game and then vertical shots, primarily outside the numbers, whether it's Claypool, whether it's Washington, whether it's Johnson. He'll work the middle of the field with Johnson and Freiermuth. Freiermuth's a very nice player as a tight end. I would think when you watch tape, and I've probably seen 90% of Ben Roethlisberger's plays since he's been in the league in 2004. What continues to stand out now on tape is Roethlisberger cannot really drive the ball with velocity. I would say he was never a true power thrower, but he always had the ability to muscle up and drive it when needed. That's kind of lacking right now. And that may be another reason they don't really have a true intermediate pass game, where at times you've got to drive the ball between, in zone windows. And he can't really do that right now. So it'll be interesting to see. If you want to talk about their run game, I think Najee Harris is your classic grinder. There's not a lot of juice to him. He can't really reaccelerate in confined space. He's a grinder. So, unless they hit their vertical shots, they're not really a team that creates a lot of explosive plays.
Yeah. And that's something that we talked about certainly coming into the season with that draft pick of Najee Harris. I think that has it kind of their offensive line isn't the same group that it has been in the past couple of years, but are you kind of seeing the usage of Najee Harris in a way that we kind of discussed prior to the season? Are you seeing that translate from what you imagined to what they're executing on film?
Well, I think, and this is what I thought watching his tape. When I watched his tape from 2019, because that was the summer prior. It was really the hardcore COVID summer. So I watched his tape from 2019, and I came away thinking that he would struggle to be a good NFL back. And then I watched his tape from 2020, and I thought, oh, he looks a little quicker, a little more dynamic. And I thought, oh, now he's got a chance. I didn't think his running skill set, to me, was worthy of a first-round pick, but I think he was drafted in the first round because he is a complete back. He's an excellent receiver and a very good blocker. So I think that's why he was drafted where he was. As a pure runner, if you separate the blocking and the receiving, I think he's in the NFL, he's a little more like his 2019 tape. He's not overly quick laterally. He doesn't have what I didn't call it. Fred Taylor told me this on the floor of the dome at the combine one year, and I've never forgotten it. I don't think he can re-accelerate. Fred Taylor said that one of the key things for a back, particularly when you run inside, is the ability in confined space to re-accelerate.
Yeah.
And I don't think Harris is that guy. So I don't think you'll see a lot of longer runs. Even his longest run this past week of 20 some odd yards, he bounced outside. You're not going to see him get a lot of long runs running inside. So he's a true grinder. They'll give him the ball a lot because he's their feature back, but he's kind of a 22 for 81 kind of guy. That's kind of the runner he is.
I had to look up I had to do the math on what grade I was in 2004 when Ben Roethlisberger came into league.
Stop it, Buck. Stop it. Come on now.
Fifth grade, Greg. Fifth grade, that quarterback.
I resemble that remark.
just trying to do some mental math. So if my face looks bad for the YouTube audience, it's because I'm struggling. I'm not very smart.
So how old are you? So in 2004, what grade were you in?
I was in fifth grade in 2004. So
well, good for you. I was not in fifth grade in 2004.
But 90% of the snaps, institutional knowledge. That's why you come to the install and watch the matchup show for Greg's great work. So elsewhere in the league right now, Greg, I mean, this Thursday night game coming up, hugely critical in the AFC as far as determining who is going to win that division at this point. And we know that this game has already potentially been impacted by COVID. And as we tape this on Wednesday afternoon, it's unclear, we don't know the status of a lot of these guys, but Chiefs Chargers is the Thursday night football game. The offense for the Chargers seems like it's opened up a little bit. And I wonder if you can kind of better articulate what it is that I think that I'm seeing.
Well, there was a lot of talk this season that this was a very kind of quick game, get the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands. He's very rhythmic. So, I think the feeling was, well, let this kid turn it loose. Well, that's always easy to say as an outsider. Obviously, that incredible throw he made to Jalen Guyton for the touchdown. That was a third and 11 play. So that's not necessarily a schemed play in the sense that, they planned that and he was going to throw it to Guyton. I mean, he had to leave the pocket due to backside pressure. And that throw was just about as big time as it gets. It was 63 yards in the air, and he dropped it right in the bucket, and he got hit just as he released it. But they did a couple of other things where they schemed up some more intermediate throws. I would expect you'll see them continue to do that. I think that the bigger story has really been the Chiefs' defense. Everybody focuses on Mahomes, and clearly their offense is sort of getting back into a better sense of rhythm. But the Chiefs are on a 6-game winning streak, and it's really been a function of their defense. Yeah. And what's really been fascinating is they have played the highest percentage of cover 2 of any team in the NFL in their 6-game winning streak. So they've really made that a very foundational coverage for them. It always has been, but not to this degree. And I think what Steve Spagnuolo has done, and it's not his first rodeo, as you know, Buck, he's been doing this a long time at a really high level, is there's a lot of disguise and late movement. So he's making quarterbacks have to think and decipher after the snap. So what you do is you slow down the decision process for the quarterback. At the same time, the speed of the play is increasing. So think about that for a minute. That's a hard deal. If when you drop back as a quarterback and you don't feel like you're getting a clean look, everything's happening fast. So that makes it hard on a quarterback.
Oh, without question. That fraction of a second makes all the difference in the world as far as the processing and elimination that we talk about all the time on here. So from the standpoint of the Chiefs offense, Greg, and Mahomes is the star attraction. So you're right. People discuss that far more than they do how much better the defense is playing and how big a part of this 6-game winning streak that they're on. But the 2 games that the Chiefs offense has looked like the Chiefs offense that we're accustomed to have both come against the Raiders. And I wonder what you've kind of made of how the Raiders have tried to defend him, if there's something that stands out about how the rest of the league is looking at the Chiefs offense and what the Raiders are screwing up.
Well, it's funny you say that because, other than the Raiders games for the last, I don't know, it's probably been close to 2 months now. And my buddy Matt Bowen on the Matchup Show and I had this conversation last week. It was before the game this Sunday when obviously their offense did have a nicer feel to it. But in the game they played the week prior, and I'm just turning around to look at my schedule. So the week prior, KC played Denver, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now they won that game. That was the game they won, I guess 22-9 or whatever it was. But Matt and I were just talking and said, boy, everything looks hard for the Chiefs offense. And that's the way it's kind of been for, as I said, the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
They've tried to really get Mahomes back playing with a sense of rhythm. He's even talked about that publicly. The fact that, hey, I want to get in the pocket. I want to play from the pocket. Look, you don't want to stop him from making special plays, but you've got to channel that and you've got to find a balance. The game can't be played predominantly outside of structure. You can't build a week-to-week consistent offense that way, counting on outside of structure plays. So they're trying to play more within structure. They're trying to get a run game going. Mahomes, any given week, is capable of absolutely special plays because the talent level is off the charts. But it's just hard to play that way. And their defense has really carried them over the last 6-7 games. I mean, they put up, I saw it on Twitter somewhere, and I can't remember the details of it, but their numbers defensively over the last 6 games have been historic to some degree. So this has really been, amazingly enough, a defense-fueled team in this 6-game winning streak.
Boy, given the way that they started, literally the worst defense in the league at the start of the year as far as points per game allowed, yards per play allowed. They were leaking all over the place. So it's a commendable job by the players and that defensive coaching staff to kind of right the ship on that. Elsewhere in the AFC, Greg, this Patriots-Colts game is probably going to be one of the biggest of the weekend. I assume that's going to make the Matchup Show, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's our featured game because actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. We actually have 3 shows on Saturday this week and no show on Sunday because we were going to do the Cleveland Raiders game, which is also a Saturday game, but unfortunately COVID has kind of forced us to remove that from the show just because too many players on Cleveland are out. But the Saturday night game is the Patriots Colts, and that's our featured game. That's our C block game where we spend a whole section, and that's a really fascinating game. And one thing we always know about Bill Belichick, and again, until games happen, you don't know, but normally he does not let the other team's offensive strength beat him. So I'm very curious to see how he goes about defending Jonathan Taylor, because Taylor is clearly the foundation of the Colts offense. And could he break one for 70 yards? Yes, he certainly can on any play. But I would be surprised if the Colts control the pace and tempo of the game running the ball. That would surprise me against Belichick's defense.
So from the standpoint of the Colts, just because if they lose that game to the Patriots and the Titans win the AFC South. So this is impactful locally.
Yeah.
And Titans fans will be scoreboard watching. From the standpoint of this Colts offense, we know that the fundamentals are based off the running attack and what Jonathan Taylor is able to do and how versatile they are and how much better that offensive line has played since they got healthy after starting the year the way that they did. What if the Titans fans haven't seen the Colts since October 31st? Because oddly enough, that division series was done before November. What is there anything that has not? I don't want to say changed, but for people who haven't seen the Colts offense in a while, what exactly are they doing? Because they're the 3rd best scoring offense in football lately.
Yeah, I don't think there's a mystery to what they do. I would say in this given game, Buck, I think they're going to have to be a little more expansive on first down. And by that, I don't mean they should just toss it all over the yard. But to me, we always talk about the importance of 3rd down.
Yeah.
I think first down is the most critical down for the Colts. And I don't think they can succeed just by running the ball. I think they're going to have to create some opportunities, get the ball out of Wentz's hands quick with quick defined reads. So they can almost stay, misdirection, low risk, stay ahead of the chains, maybe use Taylor in the pass game a little bit on first down. I think they're going to have to do that. Take a shot here and there. but I don't think they can just line up and say, here's Jonathan Taylor, here we come, and expect that they're going to win first down, throughout the game. Because I just don't believe that they will be able to do that against Bill Belichick's defense. That defense is playing at a really, really high level right now.
Oh, you're preaching to a fan base, and certainly to anybody who's watched the Titans, preaching to the choir on that. I've seen so many first down runs in my life since Derrick Henry has been here in Tennessee. And the first down runs, they can be efficient on it, but it's when they run on 2nd and 10 right up the middle, Greg. I just slam my head into the console in the press box because.
Well, don't hurt yourself, Buck. Don't hurt yourself.
I mean, at this point, Greg, I'm just trying to make it through. We all are. And to make it through, you've got the Install podcast. So make sure you leave Greg and myself a lovely review, a 5-star rating, wherever it is that you get your podcast. And hopefully, Greg, knock on wood or whatever's closest to you, no more positive tests so that we can see the players that need to play in these games on the field.
I know that. I just hope, look, I'm sure they'll figure something out to increase the protocols, because the last thing we want, that anybody wants, not just you and I, is you get to a big game and and a big time quarterback can't play in it, or any, we just don't want that to happen.
No, I got cussed off the radio today because I put out the hypothetical. What if Derrick Henry comes back and he goes on the COVID list? What then? And then immediately all of the fans of the Titans called in and just wanted to just run me out of town. So we'll see if we can't keep this thing on track. The NFL will as well. And the Install podcast will be here with you every Wednesday to make sure you do so. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Buck.